Dear mariners, welcome to my channel The Sailing Beast. Please like, share and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the bell icon for updates on upcoming videos. In this video we will discuss LOF 2020, an update to the world's oldest and most commonly used salvage contract on 1st of January 2020. The biggest change is probably the departure from the separation of the Lloyd's Standard Salvage and Arbitration (LSSA) clauses, procedural rules, and fixed cost arbitration procedure. These have now been merged into a single document, the Lloyd's Salvage Arbitration Clauses 2020, LSAC, which combines the old clauses and rules so that everything is in one place. This addresses a common complaint from salved property interests, usually individual cargo interests who are unfamiliar with the old LOF contracts and their constitution, that it was difficult to navigate. Changes introduced in following 12 new amendments to existing LOF. Clause H. Important notice No. 4. Clause 1. Introduction. Clause 2. Overriding objective. Clause 4. Provisions as to security, maritime lien and right to arrest. Clause 5. Appointment of arbitrators. Clause 6. Arbitrators' powers. Clause 7. Representation of parties. Clause 8. Arbitration procedure. Clause 14. Special cargo provisions. Clause 15. Fixed cost arbitration procedure, FCAP. Clause 19. Contractors' special right to terminate. Let's discuss each separately. Clause H. The language in Clause H of the LOF has been amended to make it clear when the services are deemed to have been performed. The award and appeal set out in some detail the law in relation to when a vessel can be considered as being in a safe condition in the place of safety. Important notice number 4. The contract incorporates the ad hoc requirement that was implemented by the Lloyd's Salvage Arbitration Branch for the contractors to notify and provide a copy of any agreement that amends or varies the provisions or terms of this agreement. The intention is to improve the transparency of the LOF procedure and allow the LOF panel of arbitrators to review these agreements and consider their enforceability. Clause 1. Introduction. This has been amended to include reference to the old procedural rules which are now set out in Clause 8 and the fixed cost arbitration procedure which is set out in Clause 15 of the LSAC. Clause 2. Overriding objective. The overriding objectives, which in our view are often forgotten or overlooked, maintain their prominence and are now located in Clause 2 of the LSAC. Clause 4. Provisions as to security, maritime lien and right to arrest. Subtle changes have been made to Clause 4.5 which specifies the form and format of security that should be provided by a salved property interest. Clause 4.5 requires that security shall be provided to the Council of Lloyd's, via the Lloyd's Salvage Arbitration Branch, that it is in a form approved by the Council of Lloyd's and, by person S, firms or corporations acceptable to the Council or acceptable to the contractors. There is no longer the requirement for the guarantor to be resident in the United Kingdom, which reflects the increasingly international nature of the marine insurance market. Clause 5. Appointment of arbitrators. This now provides an entitlement for the arbitrators and/or appeal arbitrators to seek security for their reasonable fees and expenses, which mirrors the position of the contractors to ensure that they are adequately secured. Clause 6. Arbitrators' powers. Clause 6. Arbitrators' powers. The arbitrators' powers are conferred to them by virtue of the provisions in the Arbitration Act 1996 and any subsequent amendment to this legislation. Clause 6.2 sets out the additional powers that the arbitrators have at their disposal, bearing in mind the Clause 2, overriding objectives, in addition to those contained in the Arbitration Act 1996. The clause provides a non-exhaustive list and gives arbitrators wide discretion to conduct the arbitration in such a manner in all respects as he may think fit subject to the LSAC 2020 clauses. Any decision by the arbitrators in relation to the costs and expenses incurred by a contractor in seeking and obtaining security, enforcing or protecting a salvage lien and securing the payment of fees and expenses of the Lloyd's Salvage Arbitration Branch and the arbitrators, remains part of the arbitrator's absolute discretion under Clause 6(3) of the LSAC. The powers of the appeal arbitrators have been moved from the old LSSA Clause 10 to the end of LSAC Clause 6 so that all the relevant provisions are in one place. Clause 7, Representation of Parties. This clause has remained largely unamended save that under Clause 7.4, an owner of salved cargo is deemed to have received notice of the hearing and any relevant correspondence if the contractor provides such notice or correspondence to the guarantor. This provision reflects the increasing costs faced by a contractor when dealing with large container vessels with many hundreds or even thousands of cargo interests. Clause 8, Arbitration Procedure. This is where the old procedural rules are now located within the LSAC. The amendments to these provisions are minimal.